Yujan, me, Joe, good to see you, and thank you for doing this. You are back by popular demand. Tell us what you're
Thanks
going
a
to teach us
bunch.
today.
Yeah, so today we're just gonna continue the conversation from last week. And during the demo, I'm also gonna go into just kind of some more details about some highly opinionated ideas of how to get AI/ML, SAMD, FDA cleared. And also, given the nature of this group, I'd be very happy to entertain questions and panel discussions during that presentation as well. I thoroughly enjoyed last time, so hopefully this will spur some more conversations as well. Um, so yeah, let me know what should I just go and get started, Sean, or anything else from the house?
So those of you who missed the previous session with you, John, they're doing some really innovative stuff with automating the 510(k) process. And he was gonna demo the thing, and then we sort of ran out of time. Is that accurate?
Yeah,
Um, so I'm gonna let him talk and shut up.
let me share my screen. Uh, all right, let me start that there. Can everyone see my screen? And can everyone see my mouse cursor?
Yes.
I've got my eyes and ears. All right, cool. So from the audience, I would like to ask you for a favor. If you could please give me your favorite SAMD device that's already in the market. I'm going to pull the 510(k) summary of that device, and we're going to put it into this AI agent and watch it come up with a proposal list of requirements and user needs. So, anyone from the device or from the audience, give me something you've got. What's your favorite SAMD?
Hmm.
Sleep monitoring is popular in this group.
All right, and I know one just released by Apple, I believe. I think that
Yeah.
was a sleep monitor. Is that right? Yeah, yeah, it is. So let's take their 510(k) summary. And I'm just using the 510(k) summary because this is a publicly available document. However, it's more likely you'll be using something like code or like internal documents that have already been written for the context that you would give to an AI like this. And I can prompt it with some specific actions that I want it to do. Or we've got this feature called I'm Feeling Lucky, which will go through and execute this pre-written set of commands, these scripts, um, that will ask it to create a bunch of requirements um, that kind of follow my own personal style. So this is really like it helps me perform this specific task, and I prompted it in a way that kind of captures my design philosophy. Um, so this is this is a tool that could be used internally as part of your service delivery. It's not something that we like are making really publicly available yet. This is still like really much like an internal tech demo, but just to kind of get you guys an idea of where I think generative AI tools in like the regulatory intelligence space could be headed, where you have context that you give a tool, which would include all of your documentation, which would include FDA guidance documents, could also include code, and then you prompt this knowledge base with a set of LLM prompts, and then those LLM prompts can come back with actions that your agent can then perform. So in this instance, the AI agent behind the scenes is adding requirements to this database that we have here on the right, based on the prompts that we give it. So yeah, this is what I was demoing last time I was here. We didn't have time to really talk about like any of the details or any questions or any ideas about this. So I'd be happy to entertain some questions and any thoughts on this so far. And then after we kind of talk about this, I'll go into the other topic about some more opinions about how to get SAMD FDA cleared. So I'll open up the floor for anything.
This is awesome. I see,
Thanks, George.
in my last corporate role, we were looking at having a software cluster bundled together for a wearable application. That they were trying to get through FDA. Had we had this tool, it would have saved months on the filing and application, because I think this would have been a good precursor to understanding pathways. So yeah, somebody pointed out this could be sold right now to industry. Right?
No, that was me. That was me. No, I can tell you right now that the reason I put together the software company to do what we're doing with the environmental controls, because there's nothing out there and it's needed really badly. If you're already doing something from a commercial venture, it's just like when they were putting out the ESG, it was a cluster for the first few years of trying to get drugs through the ESG portal, until finally I had to go through third parties to get all that validated. They created their own validations to get things through that software. If you have a way of APIing into and getting the FDA to say, we will accept this information, you get a deal with them to say, if you do this, this is kind of like QuickBooks before a report, for an audit report. This is needed right now. I was thinking about doing the exact same thing. You just beat me to it, but that would have been on my list of things to do and have that part of my company. So you have an excellent idea that is commercially needed right now.
And I'm going in two different directions. That was one of the ideas I had put on my shelf, that I need to sit there and use OpenAI to kind of automate this process. So just thank you.
Yeah, and really, like this concept is a lot more general than just the use case that I just demoed. And really, it's like a couple of key components. I think the most important one is context. So context, it's kind of like short-term working memory, and sorry to kind of anthropomorphize, but like it's kind of the easiest way to explain some of these concepts, even though it's not exactly the way that these LLMs really, quote, think. But the context gives you what you would have loaded into your short-term memory in order to make some sort of action, right? So for like this could be 510K summary, which is currently in the context right now. It's also the state. It's also all existing requirements, which gets updated dynamically. And you could imagine that you would add all sorts of things to this context, right? FDA guidances, probably like the TPLC, and all sorts of things. And then this context goes to a prompt that you generate. And the two combined will then go to this LLM. And this LLM could be one of many things. And here's the other beauty about a system like this. As the LLMs get better, like you go from ChatGPT 3 to ChatGPT 4 or GPT 5 or whatever, it's essentially a drop-in replacement. So pretty much overnight, whenever a new LLM version comes out, this entire system gets smarter and smarter. And then this LLM then generate a set of actions, and then via like APIs, you kind of take these actions into like, you can even do like Google Sheets. In our case, we use Notion a lot. But, and also I think, Mark, you'd mentioned an FDA API.
Yeah.
You know, these are all actions that you could program into the prompt and say, like, you know, please give me back a set of actions that I can execute based on this context that I give you and based on this prompt that I've designed. And then once these actions execute, you essentially can repeat the loop. So turn it into this like chain of actions, basically. So I think this overall pattern is what's being coined as like the agentic workflow, where you have LLMs that have tools that they can use to not only generate LLM responses for you, but also act upon the data model via API calls like this. So this is like the agentic workflow, and you see a lot of these coming out where they kind of do this research or do like in this case here, like a first pass through all the requirements and user needs and other documentation artifacts. But yeah, that's basically the pattern that is used here, and it's quite general if you think about it in this way.
Can I throw something in real fast?
Yeah.
One of the things that would be immensely needed is if you had a tie into all the different literature searches where you can actually check different databases and pull any type of predicate devices, anything that's going on the mod, anything in the MDR, any problems out there, and any kind of literature searches. If you had that already pre-programmed in with some sort of filter to look for certain keywords, and then you're documenting those keywords, because that is also what goes in your report. Here are the keywords that we use to do the literature search. If you're doing that from one place in more like a wizard format, like what you've got right here, and it automatically pings, and here are all the places we go to, and it's all the stuff everybody does anyway. If it has, AI is beautiful for something like this, because it can go through and rip through like a spider through the entirety of the internet and find stuff like this. That would be an immense help to regulatory and quality people who have to go and do these kind of searches. If your AI can do it, it's worth its weight in gold right now.
I want to use it for teaching, because this is my students, because my students, they see, well, AI is here, like we want to learn the latest thing. I teach design control. And so once I teach the basics of design control, it's like, why should they go through manually? And the only thing is that you need to have a good amount of knowledge to understand, like, okay, does this really apply to my device? And also in terms of the requirements, you need to make sure you don't have conflicting requirements and things like that. So, but I would think, like, you could do with requirements, you could say, all right, now please apply the 41 rules of systems engineering to make sure, because I use software from QRA Corporation right now for that. So I'm just thinking that just another step further to make people's lives easier on things that are so administrative. That's what people need to be able to learn to do to get medical devices approved quicker. You know, I mean, the testing is like really important, but things like this data searching, this is what AI is perfect for, rather than just manually Googling and searching and
100% agree. 100% agree.
Definitely. And I think Verna, you touched on several important points there. Is that this AI is a tool. It's not going to replace any human expertise. In fact, it's only here to augment and gap fill a little bit of your knowledge, but not extend past your current level of comfort or your expertise. Like I found that, like, when using AI to try to convert someone into an expert, it just usually doesn't work. But usually it's useful to amplify an expert, to really amplify their skills in that. So certainly something like, please apply 41 rules the person using this prompt, this tool should know how to do that manually themselves, so they can evaluate the output, this AI, to make sure that it's not hallucinating or make sure that it's operating as intended. But it can't be used by someone who doesn't know how to do the underlying prompt themselves. That's kind of that's been my experience so far with the current generation of AI.
Well, I guess what you're
That
really
probably
trying
will
to
be
say,
true for a while.
I actually have an example where there's somebody I don't think knows what they're doing. And so they'll come in and say, well, this is a requirement, and this isn't a requirement. And I, knowing it is, I've gone into AI and I said, please give me language to explain why this is important, why this is required, because I know it. And then when I read the language, I can validate its accuracy. Whereas if I'm somebody who doesn't know what I'm looking for and I get something, I don't know if it's accurate or not. I think that's really what you're trying to say. It's like you've got to have the knowledge to know what you're reading, that you're getting
Right.
output.
Yeah, does it make sense? Yes, exactly. The other thing is that
Yeah.
AI is great for is coaching. So with which is why it's really nice for students, is that I say, all right, you're learning this. So if you're wondering if this is an appropriate requirement, you can ask, like, is there something missing? Is if my product has this other feature, would I need another so coaching is what's really helpful. The other one, don't forget, other than the 41 rules, you want to also be able to apply EARS, which is the easy approach to requirement syntax. And so it could also then check and then suggest appropriate syntax in the EARS format for requirements.
I've actually been using it for labeling review and verification right now.
Oh, yeah.
I
Excellent.
literally had it help me write. I was teaching somebody how to do labeling specifications yesterday. And sometimes like you get tongue tied and you're explaining it. And I said, so I went to AI and I said, okay, this is what I'm trying to say, make it simpler. And it outputted the entire specs and explained it why. And I was able to walk the person through it in 5 minutes versus it would have taken me hours to make a presentation to explain exactly why we were doing what we were doing.
The other thing is, like, that would be good is, like, I wonder if it can, like, okay, here's all your requirements, but of course these also all have to, software is only slightly different, but I mean, still with all requirements, they need to trace back to user needs.
Yep.
So it'd be good to say, like, all right, if these are all the requirements, I mean, it's so like tedious to go back and trace to user requirements, but a lot of times that's what you need to do, because you've kind of like unconsciously been saying, oh yeah, this is a user need, we got to have it do this and this. But then people, as I come into startups or as I'm teaching, it's like people don't think of in the proper order of user needs and then this and then a design requirement. People think all different ways, but then you have to connect them all with the trace matrix. So how
Well, what's funny about that is that that's the other part of the software boom, that the things that need to be electronically resolved, because you've got so much interconnectivity between the different documents that you have in a design history file, or what they call a medical device file now in 1345. All these things are interconnected. So you are, and ultimately this would be a module of a much larger piece of software that would roll through all the requirements, interconnect everything, and make the whole DHF, which is now MDF process, one large spider-webbed, interconnected, easy to put information in. Once that's in, it's interconnecting to the different places that it's supposed to interconnect. I'm doing it manually right now on Excel spreadsheet and Microsoft Project. But this is something I've been wanting to develop for the longest time. So once this company, our company with the environmental controls, gets done and we start generating revenues, I want to take on the big task of doing all of this and maybe including this as that literature module within the entirety of the DHF, so that everything is connected, like you said, through a full trace matrix, beginning and end, inputs, outputs, verifications, validations, and then transfer to manufacturing.
The one thing I struggle with when I'm having AI compare something, and it's more of my visual issue, because I have 3 forms of lazy eye. So like if it's all black and white text, I can't see the difference. And so it would be really great if AI could actually start doing some sort of, red lines or a yellow highlight. Hey, you have a problem here, because if I get a huge document, I have to sit there and side by side still do the compare. So that I'm still going to my Microsoft Words and doing compare documents to figure out where my gaps are. So that's one of the things I find that's a miss in AI, is it's not really good at flagging things to be obvious, either a gap or what you're trying to compare or differences, that kind of thing.
Yeah, normally what I'm doing, it might be DHF, I color code things. So I've got the, the stoplight approach. Red is, I got it's critical, got to jump on it, it's behind. Yellow is I've got some problems. Green is it's okay, I don't have to worry about that sort of thing. So just from a high level approach, that's kind of what I'm doing with this. And it'd be nice if AI could do the exact same thing, letting us know where the problem areas are from a project management standpoint.
Yep, exactly. That's the gap that I find. And if I, and what I think what you guys are saying, and I want to just paraphrase this, is like, I could literally have requirements, upload them into AI and say, please trace these out. And that's what is that a way you're doing that? Because I know that a lot of people do it manually, or they use the system like Matrix to do it manually. And that would be useful.
Yes,
I think
certainly that is one action that this particular AI agent does have access to. So it has a tool that it can use to link a specific requirement to a specific user need. And I found that is a very good use case for AI right now. It's pretty good at doing like a fuzzy language match, or it kind of knows that, hey, most likely this user need is implemented by these requirements. You obviously still have to check it. Like you see here that there's some duplicates. So like, and there's another action that could go through and deduplicate requirements. But these are all like ingredients in like a big recipe, and you kind of have to chain them together. But yes, linking is a great use case. Also, I think your point about adding comments to like Word documents and stuff, I think that's just a matter of adding that as an action to this agent that perhaps you'll have in here, like your quality manual could be as part of the context, let's say. And you might have a action, or you might have a prompt that says like, find gaps in the quality manual, or find 1345 gaps in the quality manual.
Yeah, the other thing I think.
Yeah, and then this then could go through the LLM, and one of the actions would be to flag or to add comments to a Word document where it's found a gap.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the core LLMs themselves probably have the capability of doing this gap analysis, but they don't have the tooling to execute and to like add a comment to Word. And so that makes it significantly less useful, because also the LLMs don't have a good way to assemble the context, which is usually a separate tool.
Well, like if I've uploaded a document and I said, hey, do a grammar check on this, then I copy and paste it. I'm still not seeing the errors. I still have to do a compare to the original Word document, but because you've lost your styles and your layout, it really it's not helpful in that way, or I haven't figured out how to make it helpful. Let's put it that way.
Have you tried using the template?
Using the template in the AI, or?
Yeah, a lot of times what I do is I'll say, using this template, give me feedback on this document.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I did not. That's a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah, that's how it's used. Well, first of all, you can give it a rule and then it'll apply the rule for you. So, but also you can ask it about the template. You're like, oh, like would make sure that it's more formalized or more professional looking, or I use it sometimes for emails when I'm like doing a massive number of emails. I'm thinking, okay, I'm getting frustrated. Can you just check the tone of my email to this student,
So many
and it'll like, oh yeah, that's much more calmed down.
And I have the same affliction with the lazy eye as well, as well as adding to that ADD. So, I find that this tool
Mhm.
of AI is very helpful in keeping me focused and catching things that I might miss.
And to be honest with you, if you sit and you design it right, if you have it functionally perfect, the actual graphics sort of fall into line with being functional. If you can talk to people like ourselves, the people who are out here using it manually right now, what we're using, if you can incorporate the AI that takes away all these manual processes, you have it functionally perfect. It's functionally doing what it's supposed to be doing. The pretty doesn't really worry me too much. I'm looking at functionally being able to do something that takes me weeks, months. Whereas if I can sit down and I can input all the data and just as I go, it just input the data and it's learning and it's putting things together and it's building. By the time I get done, if I have put in everything, I should only have one review where I review everything and have to make minimal changes to the functionality of that 510K. You have the perfect 510K AI type software.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, certainly, like right now, I think the technology, like the state of the art right now, it still is much, like it needs to be a tool used by experts.
Yep.
And it needs to be edited. Like each kind of step along the way, there should be a breakpoint and say, okay, well, here's some draft requirements. Now an expert should go and like make sure they look good or edit them, add more, delete more. That's another shortcoming, I think, of a lot of AI tools that we see, like the chat bots in every website. I almost never use those. Like I find them not that useful. And the reason is like they don't give you a chance to edit and like guide the AI
Mm.
down a certain process. Um, which is why we built in like the ability for the AI to write back to Notion, which is really easy. Like in Notion, it's really easy to um, change any of these artifacts generated by AI, and via nature of the context, that change then gets incorporated into subsequent calls to the LLM. So uh, that allows the human expert to course correct. You definitely need that. Otherwise, like it becomes like a giant Jenga block. Eventually it just like you could let AI go on its own for a little bit, but it's going to get derailed at some point.
Well, Yujan,
Um,
what you'll have is you'll have to have the ability to allow the experts, when we get new information in, to be able to make those
Mhm.
changes to our initial assumptions and requirements. So there has to be
Right.
that iterative process of saying, if I have to make a change because, then I have to go back and make those initial requirement changes, user need changes, which AI should pick up to say, okay, if you make that change, there may be a change to a risk. There may be a change to procedures. There may be a change to documents I need to supply because of that new information. We need the
Mhm.
AI because most people, if you don't have the expertise up here, if you're not already experienced to know that these things have to happen based on the new information, just like we were talking about it being a teaching tool, this, with our help, should be able to pick that up to say if this user need changes, it changes the risk, it changes documentation, it changes all the things that need to be changed as a result of that initial change at the beginning. And AI, if completely developed to do that sort of thing, like what humans are doing now and taking a long time to do, if we could replace that whole human effort with a prescriptive, this is what we normally do, iterative type approach, and smart enough to pick that up and catch it, it helps us as professionals to say, oh, I completely forgot about having to do this because we made that change. It is definitely something that we need to support our effort out here in the field.
Yep.
So Yujan, is there a
Yes.
way that the people on this call can play with this tool?
Yes.
That's a great question. And this tool is still very much like an internal tool that we use to help us with our services. Which by the way, we're a software engineering firm. So we build software for medical device and also help our clients get FDA cleared. And this is like a kind of internal tool that we're currently using. So it's not really easily publicly available. Although if anyone's interested in potentially funding that, or helping us raise some money to turn this into a standalone tool, we'll be happy to explore options there.
Oh, I think that you
but-
could go for, you could look for a grant. I mean, this is constantly in terms of getting things through. So I would say, yeah, if you want to chat offline, you should look for an NIH or a grant of some sort, the government, because this would be beneficial not only for industry, but for the FDA.
They would probably want to help fund it.
That's great to know. Thanks for
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because we're trying to solve it. I think just breaking this down into how we're probably currently using LLMs. The first step you do is you assemble the context, right? And currently most of these are being done manually. So then you assemble the context, you formulate the question to the AI, and then you then ask the AI, or say send prompt plus context to LLM, and then you manually create actions to take, and then you manually execute those actions afterwards. And for those of you who use AI heavily in your work, you probably find yourself doing this a lot, right? Every day. So, and the issue currently with a lot of AI is that this is all a manual process. The context assembly, the formulating the questions, and then taking the actions on the responses is all a manual process. But where I think the industry should be headed is to turn these into an automatic process, so that this loop that you're doing goes from taking 10 minutes per prompt action cycle to taking 1 minute or even less, by turning some of these manual aspects, or what were manual aspects, to turning them into something that is automatic. So I think, like, fundamentally, this is the core idea of what I presented. Turn it from something like this to these will be automatic.
That's
and for anyone,
I was just getting ready
creating.
prescriptive. 510K process is prescriptive. Really, if you look at it from a standpoint of here are the requirements, we're only talking about if I were to use this, say fully functional, if I put any class device in and say, I want to know everything I need to know about this to be able to submit a 510K. If we've done this a number of times, it should be far enough to learn to say, here are the things you have to have this device, this specific device, this class device, is what the FDA is requiring to have an entirety of a 510K submission. The AI should automatically be able to say, you enter in whatever the device is, what class it is, and then automatically go out, ping all those sources, bring in predicate devices, bring in all this stuff that you have to have anyway, and start filling up things, and then produce the gap assessment to say, here are the other documents, supportive documents you need to have. Go get those, upload those. Once they're in, AI can generate those links between everything and should be able to guide the people doing the work as to what's left to do, instead of, hey, we got a whole bunch of stuff, we're not really organized, we can't get it together. This could actually, as a teaching tool, direct people to do things in a certain order, put things in alignment, because it's doing it automatically. But certainly, if I put in some minimal information at the beginning, I would expect AI to come along and say, here's everything you have to have for a 510K submission for that particular device.
Mark, you hit on something as well, the predicate devices that would be filed with this, so that so having the AI come back and have a kind of like a rank percentage of, you know, this predicate versus this predicate versus this predicate that would be most likely comparable, that you could use it for the submission would be ideal.
All the predicate devices are up on the FDA website. You go and see exactly where all the data is for each thing. AI parse through all that, get the language, see how close each of these are, and at some point in time, maybe make a subjective call as to how similar other devices, and give you that ranking. Because it's all already set up. We just needed an automatic way of going through all these manual processes to do what they're paying us by the hour for now. AI could certainly not really take my job. Now I'm in the role of, I'm helping you get started, put all this together. I'm going to teach you what you need to help you create the documents. It's going to be a long time before there's a whole bunch of experts who just pick up, use this, and then they don't need any of us consultants to help them out. This would be an absolute boon for my industry, because I could go out and talk to people and say, oh, you want to file a 510K? Guess what we got? You got to see this.
Yeah, like basically what you described, actually, this manually querying the external resources, that's probably one of the most time consuming parts of this.
Absolutely.
This is often not done. Which is, I think, why a lot of folks, like whenever you do have suboptimal results from using LLMs, is because the context isn't fully there. And then you're relying on the LLM's internal memory, which you never want to rely on that internal memory, because that's how LLMs hallucinate. But because this step is so time consuming, we often just skip it, right? And we just ask ChatGPT, oh, just find me a predicate device for this. That's almost never going to work, because the internal memory is only limited to like September of last year, or whatever the training frozen time was. But because this step is so time consuming, I'd say really, if you did it correctly, this would take you 100 minutes per iteration, maybe even longer. I don't know. But with the automatic method, that brings it down significantly, because this can be all scripted.
Right. Looking at a source document that is already pre-formatted a certain way. It's just that much easier to go out and find the documents, parse out the information, and put it into a report that's easy to read in a matrix style, where you can see across predicate devices and do the basic comparisons between them.
Yeah, what the next step would be like, would be nice to go from the requirements to comparing design specifications. Like, obviously you're just looking at historical stuff here, but then you've got your own design. So then you'd want to see, like, where do your design requirements fit into these, design specifications fit these product requirements. And then I just say, well, then the next step is, then I want a test stack, and I want protocols. And
right.
Because that takes so much time.
That was what I was saying about the whole DHF thing, is that you have an entirety of activities from beginning to end that include the trace matrix, includes GSPRs and post-market surveillance and risk management and all these other documents and design requirements and inputs and outputs and verifications and validations. You have a trace matrix across all of this. If that were a big program that included this one we're talking about right here as a line item that did the search, you can start at the top and say, I want to build a certain product. Let me put that in. And then if we had a larger DHF that were fully AI developed to say, well, you need risk management. Here's what you need to put into place, and do the literature searches and be able to file. We're saying it's a 510K. Well, here's all the things you'll need. If it populated an activity list just to say, here are the things you will have to manually do. And then once that's done, put that in and have the program just take over saying, thank you very much. I'll take it from here. Now you've got a list of activities you have to do. It's telling you prescriptively what you have to do. And it's just that much easier for us as experts to focus in on the activities that we have to do and let this do its job of doing the grunt work that takes us forever to do.
Mm-hmm.
This is amazing, Yujan. I tell you right now, this is really, I'm drooling here thinking about this.
Too. I have to keep wiping my mouth. Plus, it's not only fun. I mean, it's amazing, but it's like fun.
Yeah.
Because all the stuff that is so like this is going to be cool when it's done, but the process,
right,
so manual and long, it is like, okay, our brains could go much faster than this if something else could just do this like this does. So that's awesome.
And
the other thing,
it's
now this is
more
like
a
just
philosophy.
like this is like brainstorming, but the thing that I've been wondering is like, does anybody use Triz or have used Triz before? I'm not seeing any yeses. No. So if you look up Triz, so it's for, so basically it's for, I've used it before in industry, and I've had colleagues too, for coming up with new inventions. But it's very it's kind of counterintuitive, because rather than just sort of out of the box brainstorming, it goes and this has been around for a long time, but like AI would be perfectly applied to this. You go and mine all patents that have ever occurred, and then what it does is it applies these 40 principles so that you can say, all right, I've got this problem. How can I apply an analogous situation that's out there in the world to solve this problem? And usually it's a type of problem that is like, okay, I need something like, here's kind of a, I don't know, a random one. Like, okay, I need like something that needs to go really, really small, but it's got to create a big effect or something. And then it goes into all these principles. So if AI could be used to help prompt people for designs, this is kind of on the other end of what your product does. You could help come up with ideas and then see, all right, does this connect to something that's already a 510K, or other ideas that were out there to help me problem solve and iterate designs.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And you can kind of see, like, I think a lot of the work going into that is context assembly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're going out and getting a state of the world, filtering it down to what's relevant for that specific problem that you're trying to solve. So you're kind of like decoupling, getting the data and doing the computation. And getting the data is like the most time consuming part of that process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The prompt itself is going to be really trivial. Like, you're just going to basically ask it just a question, but the majority of the difficulty is the context assembly. And also, taking action is pretty easy too. Like, once you have the answer, you can then use that to ask it yet another question, or something else. I think typically, like, taking action is actually less work than the context assembly.
Well, so much of what you're doing here is feasibility. You're talking about, if you could do this and find out what's out in the world, you're thinking about going out and making something. You say, well, how feasible is it? What else is out there right now? If this were functioning right now, the way I think we're talking about it functioning, I could put in, like I said, I could put in a device, a class, the name of a device, punch a button, have AI go look around the world, find out what's going on, bring that back in and say, here's how many predicate devices, here's the way they work, here's the classes they are, here's the risk that's going on with them right now. You've done the literature search first that tells me whether or not I even want to get into the business of making this device. That's a great asset.
Well,
Yeah,
also
that's
I mean, there must be, I haven't even looked, but I mean, are there products out there? There must be right now that are doing intellectual property and say, all right, do I have freedom to operate in this space? is this a design, because then that takes a ton of time. Or the other things like that take a crap load of time when I was an engineer is with devices as opposed to software, with devices to develop a test stack so that I'm able to build the least amount of product to do all of my tests across. And so you have to think about, in a catheter is what comes to mind because I've done a crap load of catheters. It's like, okay, I could do this test. If I do it in this order, then I don't damage the product and I can use this other part of it to do this other test later on. But it takes a lot of time to like map that out, figure out, okay, what needs to be sterile device versus non-sterile, cut off the catheter tip to do this test. So it seems like that should be something that AI be able to do with a lot less time, as long as you input the design. And obviously before that, you got to input all the tests that goes back to the requirements. But if you're able to lay all these things out, it's just a huge time saver. Then you spend the time in the lab, like actually running the tests, gathering the data.
Be careful. That's what we're paying the IP lawyers for. So they might.
Well, they'll use it. I would bet that there's probably, I know there was software out there years ago. But I mean, now AI is just going to make it better because you can just comb stuff. And, it's a little bit better than, say, regulatory stuff because, these patents have been out there for a long time and they're, active for, what is it, 15, 17 years or whatever. And so, so it's not like you have to have the latest and greatest because a lot of stuff doesn't publish, until a year after it's, been in his initial patent. So anyway, so I have to connect with you, Yujan, because I want you to come and lecture in my program, because this is what students are hungry for. It's like, what's the latest? And we have so many clinicians and founders and faculty with, starting products that they want to be part of, like, what's the latest and greatest and what's, happening now. So
Where are you?
I'm at UCSF and UC Berkeley. So I
Oh,
run a Master of Translational Medicine program. So it's similar to biodesign or John Hopkins CBID program. So
let's connect after this and talk about some things.
Yes, that'd be great, Sean. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
In the meantime, don't leave Mark out because I have some ideas about where this can slot into a bigger type program using AI, just from what I know the industry needs. I have the big overall that I would love to talk to you guys about. And if we can get something going over here, do some sort of strategic partnership or align ourselves to build this sort of thing, I already know what industry needs, and they need this badly.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. That sounds great. I mean, this has been a super helpful discussion for me. Like, I think I've come to the realization that this context assembly piece is probably where most of the market needs are right now. And there's probably going to be lots of verticals, right? In like different industries. There's probably one in law. There's probably another one in like building construction, but I think they're all generally solving this part of this like AI feedback loop process. And like a lot of the pieces are there. Like I'm pretty sure there's maybe an API where you can query all the patents that existed for a certain question, and that API will give you back some context about relevant patents in that space. And there's yet another one where you can query the 510(k) summaries for a suitable predicate. Another one, maybe you can query CMS for applicable reimbursement codes. And then you can assemble all these things together in a context and do something useful with that. But I think the market inefficiency right now is like finding those and kind of aggregating them together. I think that's the current market inefficiency, and I think that'll be a great series of products that potentially could solve it for each vertical. So yeah, it's just just kind of interesting to think about teasing apart like how we're using AI day to day. What's the pain point? I think context assembly is the biggest one right now.